So today, we are back in the test kitchen and we are going to be making Chinese salads. Here's the thing, there are no such things as Chinese salads. Chinese salad is a translation of an idea of this salad, which is to say that we're superimposing a Western idea of a salad onto Chinese cooking. Chinese people, number one, tend to not eat very many raw vegetables. Number two, the category of dishes that these dishes would fall into in Chinese cooking would be called 凉拌菜, which is cold dishes or chilled dishes. Meat dishes, chicken dishes, vegetable dishes that are served cold are under this chilled dishes category, but they're not called salads. So the way we think about them needs to be a little bit different. First and foremost, in terms of the ingredients, 90% of the time, at least, they need to be cooked. But first things first, we're going to deal with these eggplants because the example recipe today is going to be a steamed eggplant that's then chilled, that's then tossed in our all-purpose vinaigrette. This eggplant itself, this is a Chinese style eggplant. It's a little longer. They're a little bit sweeter than the big aubergines, the big, larger, fat ones. These ones, the flesh is also a little bit more fibrous, so they don't turn as mushy, which makes them perfect for a salad like this. We're going to just square this off and then cut this into sizable chunks like this. Remove the tops, and then we're going to split this roughly into quarters or maybe sixths because this one's a little bit thick. The minute we start cutting them and we expose them, they start to turn yellow. That's a process of oxidation. When this vegetable comes in contact with oxygen, it's going to lose its vibrancy and its color. The white is going to be less white, the purple is going to be less purple. So the fix for this is to, number one, stop oxygen from getting to them, which is to soak them in water. This is the same thing that you do for apples, but also you can add a little bit of vinegar to maintain that vibrancy by lowering the pH of the solution. We're gonna soak your eggplants in water. The ratio, very roughly, doesn't really matter, give it a splash. It's something like a tablespoon per cup or something. Let's try to get it evenly distributed. Soak them as much as you can. If you're really being difficult and complicated about this, you could put a wet paper towel over the top to make sure that everything is submerged. Have it hang out for at least 10 minutes, just so that your eggplants can soak with that acid, and that vinegar can get into the vegetable properly so it maintains its color. A lot of the things we take for granted, like oil, neutral oil, can actually be seasoned really deliciously. And in a lot of restaurants, just like they might make a big stock in lieu of water for all of their sauce-based dishes, we can make an oil that is seasoned, pre-seasoned with aromatics to increase the amount of flavor in most of our dishes. So what we're going to do is we're going to prepare some aromatics. So for your dry spices, first things first, combine them in a bowl, soak them with a little bit of water, let it sit for at least 5 minutes. This is going to make sure that your spices are fully hydrated. We're using bay leaf, chili, Sichuan peppercorn, and star anise today. I think those are basics, but you can also add things like cinnamon, cloves, fennel, cumin would all be good. It's really up to you. So this is the dry spices, and this is what the spices will look like if they've been soaking for at least 5 minutes. Interestingly, a lot of the aromatic compounds in these dry spices have to be extracted with water, as well as oil. So when you soak them, you're doing two things. Number one, these spices now are saturated with water, so you're starting to extract some of these flavor compounds that would be more difficult to extract with oil alone. And second, when you're soaking them, you're preventing them from burning as quickly. Because they don't burn as quickly, they can cook at the same rate as the other fresh aromatics that you have. Now, in terms of fresh aromatics, the basics for almost all Chinese aromatics, garlic, ginger, scallion. We have garlic, about 4 cloves here, with the peel still on actually, ginger, and scallions. We're gonna process all of these, but to add a little bit more sweetness in terms of, in the onion world, we're going to give it a shallot as well. I think the onion is my favorite part of this aromatic oil, so all your onion scraps, whether they're onion peel, shallots, red onions, white onions, spring onion tips and bottoms, all of that can go into this oil. Think of it a little bit like a stock. We're going to smash. You can keep the peel on because we're straining everything out in a little bit as long as it's washed. We're not going to be eating this ginger, we're going to be straining it out, so I'm actually going fine with cooking it with the majority of its peel. I just take off the nubs and I smash them as well to start activating them. so that they come apart a little bit more easily. Scallion, just gonna loosen that up also. Cut them into segments, roughly 1 inch. And then for your shallot, we're gonna put all of this in there, including all the roots. As long as everything's washed, you're good to go. Now let's just cook everything. Put all of it inside of a pot. All of those fresh aromatics can go into a saucepan, peels and all. Drain your dried spices. You don't want water in your oil, obviously. As much as you can. All of those spices into the pot without the water, and then neutral oil. I'm using peanut oil today. Canola works great too. Grapeseed, very good quality oil too. Cover that and bring it up to a simmer. Stir it once in a while just to make sure things don't burn, but it's eventually going to start crackling. That moisture out of all of those fresh herbs, don't let anything burn. The minute anything threatens to want to burn, that's when you need to strain it out. And this process, in the restaurant, we do this once every couple of days. We have a big reserve of oil. That oil we keep in the fridge for stir fries, cold dishes, everything. I would actually not recommend just going through this entire process just to make one salad. Best to make a larger batch. So what you have here is a lot more than you need for the recipe that we're going to show you for the eggplants. It's been about 5 minutes. If you take a look at the pot right now, you'll find that the onions and the garlic in particular are a pretty delicious, perfectly brown. You want to take it just a shade past that, which is about 2 shades before it's going to burn. Keep in mind when you're deep frying things, things will continue to pick up color after they come out of the oil, especially something like onions and garlic. I'm going to strain it now, take it off the heat. Make sure we don't lose anything, just press it all out. Press out all that delicious oil. I mean, you can smell it from here. Now just set this oil aside so it gets to cool down before we use it. Now, to steam the eggplants, you need a steamer set up. Other than steaming properly, if you're annoyed about steaming things, you can do this in a microwave. Tell you what's good about a microwave. A microwave is basically heat that's caused by friction. Little particles inside of the thing that you're microwaving rub up against each other. The friction that is the result of these ions moving against each other means that your vegetables, or whatever you're microwaving, are heating themselves inside out. One good thing about microwaves, therefore, is relatively even consistency. Anyways, we're going to be steaming it today. Here are our eggplants, still relatively purple, mostly because they've been soaking water, but helped with a little bit of that acidity. We just have to strain this off because we don't want to add additional liquid to the steaming basket. Once your steamer is at a rolling boil, vegetables can go in. Spread them out evenly if you can. Let this steam for about 10 minutes. You want them cooked, you don't want them mushy. So this is what it looks like at 10 minutes. So this is what you want them to look like, as purple as they can on the outside. In the middle is translucent. It's not mushy. It still has a little bit of texture. That's what's nice about these Asian eggplants. They are a little bit, they last a little bit longer, if that makes sense. If some of them are still a little bit white, then we can keep steaming them, but you want to make sure that they're fully cooked. The reason why I'm laying them out on a sheet tray is because I want them to come to temperature naturally, which means that they are still a little bit warm, so they will continue to cook just a little bit, which means that taking them out about 10% before they're fully cooked is the best case scenario. So those are our eggplants fully cooked. We're just going to let this cool. You can do this ahead of time, but you can chuck that into the fridge just to get them to blast chill a little bit, but when they're room temperature, they're ready to eat. By the way, and here's the microwave version, just to show you what that would look like. The microwave for these eggplants, as mentioned, not the prettiest eggplants in the world to begin with. A little bit old. They've lost more color than the other ones. These eggplants, for testing purposes, were soaked for a slightly shorter amount of time, cooked in the microwave, and you can see that they're a little bit less pretty, but they will still taste totally fine. So you can tell the difference between the steamed and the microwave. The steamed one was also soaked a little bit longer with that vinegar. The microwave was not, and the results are a little bit less consistent. So now the next thing is let these eggplants cool, then we're going to make our quick vinaigrette. So now we're making our Chinese vinaigrette, our liangbanzhi, and one of my favorite things as a professional chef, especially in the restaurant context, is to not teach people recipes so much as to teach them mindsets, and in this case, ratios, because that allows you to make a multitude of things with one set of principles. So today, the ratio you should memorize if you're interested in making more Chinese or Asian-style vinaigrette dressings is 3, 3, 1, 1. 3 oil, 3 soy sauce, 1 vinegar, 1 sugar. That's a balance. First things first is the oil. We made this seasoning oil earlier. It's aromatic and it is delicious. So I'm gonna go, actually, as you can tell, I'm not using a real spoon here. I'm not using a measuring spoon here. I'm using a regular spoon because, again, it's all about ratios. But because of that 3, you can actually split that ratio 3 between different types of oils. You have seasoning oil here, you have olive oil if you really want to use olive oil, coconut oil if you want coconut flavor, but in my opinion, a little bit of spice comes from chili oil. So if I'm going to go of that 3 ratio, 2 of it's going to be seasoning oil, 1 of it's going to be chili oil, just to give our eggplant salad a little bit of a kick. There you go. Next, 3 parts soy sauce. Soy sauce is the main savory and salty component of this dressing. We're using light soy sauce here. Mix that in. Third component, acidity, freshness, vinegar. So that's, in this case, today we're going to be using Zhenjiang style black vinegar or a black rice vinegar. This is quite an aromatic vinegar. It's quite high in acidity. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can also use, obviously, the most common substitute for this is balsamic vinegar. Champagne vinegar works well, red wine vinegar works well. Other types of Chinese vinegars also do very well. Mix that in, and then just to balance off that acidity in that vinegar, we're going to need a little bit of sugar. We don't add any salt to this recipe because the salt already comes from the soy sauce. So we just mix that sugar in until it's dissolved. Now, as I'm mixing this, one thing to note is that this vinaigrette, this dressing, will not emulsify. I understand that emulsified vinaigrettes are one of the cornerstones for a lot of basic salad making, but an emulsified vinaigrette isn't exactly what a lot of Chinese salads are looking for. If anything, they'd like that split between the oil and the liquid, so when it goes onto the plate, it looks nice and pretty. And finally, your twists and turns, your added aromatics, your additional flavors. These are things like spices or toasted sesame seeds, or in this case, a little bit of garlic. Minced garlic, depending on the type of garlic you get and how old the garlic is, can be a little bit aggressive. So one of the good things about this vinaigrette is if you want to tame that garlic, actually add the garlic a little bit early and let your vinaigrette sit for about 5 minutes or so, and then the natural acid inside of the dressing is going to tame the aggressiveness and that bite of that garlic. Let's finish off this eggplant salad. We're going to plate up our eggplants, dress this up. Again, this dressing is not emulsified, so just make sure you swirl it a little bit so you have a good balance of oil and liquid. Last step, some scallions, mostly for color. Remind people that green things exist. Cool. Eggplants. Bonus dish, everybody's favorite Chinese salad, a smashed cucumber salad. I cut them into segments that are manageable. I smash them with my cleaver, but you can also use a saucepan. Just put a lot of pressure onto it until it splits naturally and it looks cool, and then divide up the little segments into bite-sized pieces. Cucumbers, a little bit hardier than eggplants because we haven't cooked them, so they take a little bit more time to absorb that flavor. For something like this, actually, I like a little bit more texture with some sesame seeds. Toss this, bring it together. Let's just plate this cucumber salad after it's been marinating for a little while. Okay, let's taste. Eggplants first. Get a little bit of that dressing. Very good. I will tell you, before I figured out what this golden ratio was, I could never get Chinese cold dish sauces right. But with this, I am now empowered to make any type of salad at all. You can't lose to this. This type of cucumber salad, usually served in noodle shops, just on the side. If you're eating, especially something like a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more hearty, have this on the side, helps break up some of that richness of the main things that you're eating. Super nice and crunchy. I mean, yeah, no explanation, it's good. Get the recipe for our Chinese eggplant salad on Food 52. It's also in the description below. If you like this idea of ratios, if you like the idea of freedom and liberty in your cooking, lateral substitutions, I have a great video about sweet and sour sauce that I made, one of my first videos for Food 52 that you can go on and check out.